That's pretty embarrassing. Eh. So really, when we go back to the video, we're probably going to cut that entire first section out because we've just ran the entire stream without any sound. I've been talking to no one. So this has been some pretty amazing content that I've developed for YouTube so far. So far, we've had a busted latency, and now we have had no sound for really the better part of, well, let's call it 14 minutes. Okay, well, anyway, welcome into Fat Beans Coffee Lab. I am cleaning out my roaster right now. This is an Aillio bullet, and we are just going to clean it out, and we'll probably roast some coffee later. As I was mentioning earlier, it's going to be pretty on the cuff. I normally stream on Twitch, but I'm hoping to start doing some more streams on YouTube. So this is going to be pretty rough, pretty uncut. I may go back a little bit later and cut out like the first 14 minutes of this video where I wasn't talking at all. But for the most part, I'm just going to be cleaning my roaster, hanging out, kind of explaining some things as I go. So let's get down to business. Anywho, so we're back. We have taken out the filter. We have taken out the impeller fan, and we are soaking them in some espresso cleaner. Really, with the bullet, I recommend cleaning it out every time the filter isn't really pulling air out of the machine as well. You'll notice that by chaff will start to build up a lot in the roaster. It starts to build up in the exhaust tube to the point where it's not clearing it, even when the fan is at like full speed. That usually tells me that it is time to do a deep clean. So we have some simple green right now, just getting in there. We're actually going to flip the roaster around. And we are going to start taking out some of these parts. We're going to get in there and see how dirty our roaster has gotten. If you hear me referring to the roaster as Judy, that's just to name your roaster. I feel like it's good luck to name a roaster, much like a boat. You know, you can roast with a roaster with no name, but when you hit hard seas, I don't know if that's where you want to be. So, anywho. All right, so we disengaged the 6 screws, and I usually like to take this big heavy weight off the front. You could leave it on, but I mean it is pretty heavy. I mean it's got some weight to it, and when you start taking doors off and you start taking other things off, it can kind of slam shut. So I do like to remove that. Now, key here is you just want to get the roaster plate off of the pressure. Now I usually use the shaft collector just so there's no extra or unnecessary pressure. So if we take a look here, zoom in to our roasting faceplate, you can see that it's pretty dirty. You can kind of see that chaff is definitely starting to affect here. A coffee bean got stuck in between the infrared, not the infrared, but the thermocouple. So that's probably not helping things out by any means. There is quite a bit of residue in the infrared bean sensor that can, kind of slow down the readings that you get from it. That's usually when I know that things have probably time for a good cleanse, when the feedback on that gets pretty poor. Now, I will tell you, I think my infrared bean sensor is starting to get a little weak. It has not really been as responsive as it was when it was new out of the package. I have another one. Probably should switch it out. But, you know, you get kind of used to doing something the way that it is. You kind of meet it where it is. And so, like, all of my roasts now that I've been doing are kind of based on the delayed infrared temperature. But it's probably time. It's probably time, Bean Man, to just get it fixed, do it right. But hey, Bean Man's like anyone else. He gets stuck in his ways. We're not perfect here at Fat Beans Coffee Lab. We're just learning. We're just figuring things out. So I like to take this off. So this is where you pour the coffee in. This is also where the air comes up and through to the roaster. So what happens is the hot air comes up here and then out this port here. You can kind of see there's insulation, but then it goes out the exhaust and to the back of the roaster. All the chaff travels through here, so it can get pretty gummed up. So I just feel like if it's clean, unobtrusive, then chaff is less likely to get trapped, and it's more likely to move out of the machine. So just keep tossing as many pieces into our solution as possible. Okay, so now what we probably should do is I like to take just a kind of a a lot of times beans will get stuck here, and then just buildups of chaff. I just like to clean it out, give it a couple of good thumps. I can go up underneath and just kind of give it a little, get in here with this dentist tool, get all this carbonated bean gook out of here. It makes me a lot happier. Makes me feel like I did a good job of getting her clean. Take the ball bearing out. We'll it sounds pretty good. We might hit this with some isopropyl alcohol here in a minute, but you hit it with a vacuum. Why not? We're here. We got the vacuum. Might as well. When you're cleaning the roaster out, it's kind of a nice time to give it just a little once over and check, just see everything is kind of where it is. This is a very simple roaster. There's not a ton of complexity to it, so really you don't have to worry too much. I think in the 2 years I've owned it, if I'm being honest, I haven't replaced anything. I've only really stripped it down probably 3 or 4 times. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start working on the faceplate. And I'm just using some simple green on a brush. I'm just trying to get it to penetrate as much of this as possible. Most of this is pretty baked on, and as it gets pretty hot in here. I mean, we're talking 500 degrees or more, so it's very easy for this coffee oil to get nice and applied on the metal. So what we want to do is just scrub it all off. And hell, I think I might leave the 14 minutes of me not talking on there. I mean, it's just classic Bean Man stuff. Like, that's just I don't know. I think it's charming. But in that definition, there's kind of a fine line between charming and pathetic. And we're here to walk that line. We walk that line. I've been walking the line of charming and pathetic my whole life. I get a lot of people who ask me, kind of my recommendations on the bullet. And, since we got it stripped down, I can tell you that it's a great learning machine. Like this, if there was a coffee roasting, like high school class or middle school class, and they were learning really all the basics, and they wanted to get a machine that was going to allow them to roast, but do so in a way that isolates variables and it goes at kind of a learner's pace. I think this machine really ticks all those boxes. And I think it ticks the most important box in that it gives you really, really good coffee. Like, it's super satisfying coffee. I mean, you can start to really pick up flavors that the coffee, has. You can manipulate flavors. You can really profile, probably better than a lot of other electric home roasters I've gotten on. And profiling is both what you want. I mean, after you've roasted a couple batches, it's what you want to do. Like, you want to be able to say, I'm going to take this coffee darker, I'm going to take this coffee lighter, and it's going to impact the flavor. And, this machine is really, really capable of that. It's by no means is it going to probably make you a master. Like, after 2 years, there's just some things that I think if I had just a little bit more control, specifically over heat, like how heat is both applied to the roaster, I really think sometimes I want to make adjustments to my roasts that I think will have subtle flavor developments, and sometimes I struggle with this machine. Now, I say that kind of a little tongue-in-cheek because I'm sure, like, if a person who's been roasting on let's say a gas roaster, like a Dietrich or a Loring or a Probat or, a Mill City, or insert big badass roaster here, San Franciscan, I'm sure they could come here and really just, kind of read the coffee, have done enough, like they could make it work. But, I've learned a lot about roasting coffee on this machine, and I'm kind of reaching that point where I'm like, well, is it me or is it the roaster? And sometimes I wonder if the only way to kind of bridge that is to, maybe start roasting a little bit on a gas roaster. And there's a lot of ways that I can do that. Like, I don't have to go out and spend $25,000 and get a gas roaster. I mean, we're being honest. Like, I've been selling some of my coffee. I sell it at a farmer's market. I take Judy here with me to the farmer's market. She's a big hit. And, although coffee is my passion, it's still kind of a hobby in that I am a school teacher. So I teach, I teach during the year, which limits my time considerably. But I don't necessarily need to buy one, but maybe I need to reach out to some roasters and see if they'll let me roast some batches on their roaster in some free time. Maybe if I'm like, hey, I'll bring the beans, you let me use your roaster, or maybe I could rent a roaster. I'm not sure, sure in bigger cities, bigger than Kansas City, that's probably something people have done. And, it never hurts to ask, but I don't know, I'm kind of at a crossroads. I am a big proponent of setting goals, both reasonable and semi-unreasonable. So I think, although I would say if you're learning, this is the machine. Like this, like I said, I've been roasting on this machine for 2 years. I am just constantly getting amazed with how good my coffee is, and two, just how much I've learned about coffee roasting. that's not like a flex or anything. I'm not trying to sit here and let you know that now the Bean Man is the master roaster. Because you know what? I haven't put the time in to even remotely claim any sort of mastery on this. Like I have got years and thousands of hours, years and hours that I'm happily going to invest. Like I truly do just get I get just a lot from coffee roasting. It's good for my mind just to be able to come down here and roast coffee. Obviously, I drink quite a bit of coffee. You don't get a name like the Bean Man. By shirking the amount of coffee that you drink, but I find it's fascinating. I've always been enamored with taking something like a raw coffee bean and turning it into something. And I guess it's probably very similar to cooks taking raw vegetables. But what I really, really like about coffee is that there's such a stigma. And I mean, I'm not talking about specialty coffee communities. I know you people out here who are tuning in, you know the virtues of a well roasted, fresh, good origined coffee, well grown. But just taking something that has such a negative stigma and being able to play around with the flavors and start to, change that stigma for me is it's what I just love that. I love that coffee can just open the door to really changing people's way they think about things. And that's kind of what I strive for in education. And this is really just the fast, like it's like the mega highway to that kind of realization. Because you get people who are like, I don't like coffee, I don't drink coffee black. How do you drink coffee, you know, without cream and sugar? Because if we're being honest, I've always drank coffee black. I've drank bad coffee black. I drink good coffee black. I drink it black. And I'm not saying that that's the right way or the wrong way. It's just how I drink it. But when people start going like, "How do you drink that coffee black?" and I'm like, "Well, it's a journey. But if you're willing, if you want to kind of take that journey with me, I might show you a couple of things that I've done to make black coffee. Really, in my mind, it's much more desirable than any fancy additive that I've ever had. Like I don't wince, and honestly, since I've been roasting coffee, I haven't had a bad cup of coffee. Even the bad cups of coffee, I just am starting to learn to appreciate more. You can drink coffee bad, like bad coffee, and just know that it's like okay, so A, probably not the highest quality bean. B, probably not the highest quality brew. C, probably not much care and attention taken to this. Still caffeine, so daddy's gonna rad, but nonetheless, like it is what it is. All right, so what I've been doing here is I just kind of rubbed some isopropyl alcohol in the infrared beam sensor. I threw some alcohol on my ball bearing. I have replaced the bearing a couple of times since I've started. It's, you can clean them out, but it's a lot easier just to go on to Amazon and buy like a 10 pack for like $10 of ball bearings, and just about every 6 months or so, I just throw a new one in. As soon as it starts you can really start to hear it. It'll start to kind of chug along on the roast. It'll start to make kind of creaky noises. And I usually, at that point, just switch her out. All right, so I'm cleaning out the bean chute here. We'll reattach this. Reattach this. like I said, I think I'm going to make these streams. I'm going to post them on YouTube, and I'm just going to leave them. I'm just going to leave all these thoughts. I think it's kind of just, it's very cathartic for me, even if I'm not talking to anybody yet, to just kind of record my thoughts. And I have gone back and watched these. Now I'm not completely, don't worry, I'm not totally vapid where I have to go and watch everything I do. Of the, what is like thousands and thousands and thousands of hours that I've streamed coffee since I've started. I've probably gone back and watched maybe 100 hours of myself. But I'm really kind of, along with wanting to get a new roaster, I'm trying to refocus some of my efforts and maybe hone my craft a little bit. And I think having some of this, specifically for the roasting, but really even these kind of little just free associations I have, I think are really going to be what kind of help propel me to that next spot. And obviously, if you're watching this, and I'm talking to you right now, if you're watching this, hello, and you have some thoughts or opinions, like, please feel free. I mean, I need to get better at responding, and obviously that only happens by doing. I can't sit here and tell you I'm going to get better at responding, because you know what? I wouldn't have to be getting better if I was already good at it. So I'm not going to give you any empty promises, but really inspirational things tend to draw out the Bean Man, if you would, because I've built my entire Fat Beans Coffee Lab kind of out of a stream. Like, I went live on Twitch, like I said, about 2 years ago when I was roasting with the B-More 2000. Just started putting it up there, and we've come a long way. Like, we are sitting in what I am hoping to very soon be a production facility for coffee in my basement. So, the kind of wild, wacky ideas that I've come up with for this business, while this, like I said, this cathartic experiment has it's already taken me much, much further than I ever thought I would when I bought my first home roaster. So I'm going to just, like I said, I'm not going to cut it. That might be kind of annoying. And, I think there's maybe a couple of creative things I can do to make it a little bit more palatable. But for the most part, this is just what this content is. So this roaster right here, and welcome in, called an audible, yeah. Anyway, this roaster is a Aillio Bullet R1. This is the version 2, and the version 2 of the Aillio Bullet has an infrared sensor that we just cleaned out, but it's a 2.2 pound coffee roaster. And it holds pretty true to that 2.2. A lot of times coffee roasters, they'll say like they're 6 kilograms and they only actually roast about 5 kilograms. I've done 1,000 grams on this roaster pretty consistently. It is electric. It runs on 120 volt power. Probably heaviest draw is somewhere around about 1,800 watts or so. But it's a real workhorse. I mean, as far as an electric roaster goes, I'm not aware of easier and really just intuitive electric roasters that are out there. Gas, kind of like cooking, tends to give you a little bit more flexibility, but this is the Cadillac of electric home coffee roasters. It's got a very appealing frame. In fact, I take this roaster to farmers markets pretty regularly. In the summer, I'm taking it to about 3 farmers markets a week right now, where I actually roast at the market. So a lot of the coffee that I'm selling is coffee that I'm roasting live, which I think is kind of a unique thing that we're doing. I mean, there's fresh coffee and then there's coffee you've seen roasted. And I don't know if it impacts the overall flavor, but it's pretty cool to do. So this is her. We just got her cleaned out the front, and now we're going to flip her around. It is primarily, it operates using convection heat. I would say it's probably a mix of about, probably 70% convection, 30% conduction. The heating element is down here, and it heats a drum in here. And when I get it powered back up, I'll kind of show that off a little bit. But there is an impeller fan right here that allows for pretty good air distribution that pulls the hot air out of the roaster and across the beans. That conduction works a lot more when the roaster is a little bit heavier loaded. All in all, old Jutsi, that's the name of the roaster. She's a workhorse. I was trying to calculate how many pounds I've roasted on this machine, and it's well in the thousands. Like, it is in the thousands of thousands, which is insane because when I was roasting on a smaller roaster, I kind of was at the point where I told myself I would roast at least 100 batches on my Aillio bullet before I, kind of decided if I wanted to get a bigger roaster or where I was at. And it took me months to get to 100 roasts. And the B-More, it only does about half a pound well. It's advertised as a pound coffee roaster, but only really does half a pound well. So I did about 50 pounds, and before I switched, just like that, I moved to this machine, and we have done, like I said, thousands of pounds. I've lost track. Someone needs to fire my inventory person, which is me. Fire the inventory guy. And when you buy coffee like 20 pounds at a time, it seems like you're not rolling through it. But I remember when I first bought my first 20-pound bag, and I was like, I'm never going to roast this much coffee. What the hell did I do? I've just wasted all my money. Can't believe I just spent $150 on green coffee that you can't even drink. I'm an idiot. Now, I go through at least 20 to 25 pounds just on our monthly subscription. It's I guess, not really a coffee flex. Most big time roasters are roasting 50 or 60 pounds per roast, but it's a flex for me. Okay, so got it cleaned out. I think if we're talking about the next 2 years, if we're still roasting on this, what do I think might pose a little bit of difficulties, might jump up as a problem? It might be the fact that that this little thing will go out here. Also, what roasters am I looking at? I would say right now I'm looking at a Mill City 6 kilogram. I have been spoiled at, I've kind of been spoiled by the fact that I've had connected to a computer, and I want that fully connected to a computer to kind of continue. So I may, when I'm looking, I think it needs to be able to be integrated into a computer. That is like a big selling point for me. I know a lot of the old dog roasters, like the one chatting with me right now, are more inclined to do everything by sensory, but I've become very comfortable with just having it connected to the computer, watching my ROR curves, having that replicability, being able to set recipes. I just have really enjoyed that piece of the bullet. So I'm thinking like a Mill City. If like I got a great deal on an older roaster, I wouldn't be opposed to it. But I kind of like the idea of having everything monitored by a computer and being able to make adjustments with the computer. It's just I've kind of become enamored by that piece. Now, if we're talking about just like long term, just pie in the sky dreams of mine, I do think sometimes about like getting an old, like just beaten down, lifeless roaster and fixing it up, kind of like an old car. Not big into cars. If you've watched my streams or talked to me before, you'll know that I hate cars, but I think it would be really cool to like fix up an old roaster, like track down parts for it, get it running, kind of have it as like your Sunday driver, your hobby car, if you would. So that'd be pretty badass. And if we're being honest, I would like then a man, B man, why don't you just roast coffee? Why do you need 9 roasters? It would be really cool to have like a small little gas roaster and kind of be able to decipher the nuances between my little electric roaster as well as my little gas roaster. Now we've stumbled way out into the future. We don't want to get too far out there. Forget why you're dreaming in the first place. Okay, so we got our impeller clean. And we'll just re-engage it. Probat would be a good choice for that. Yeah, I have looked at a bunch of old Probats. I've looked at some old San Franciscans, So I've had you in mind. I was looking at some old San Franciscans, but those are pretty cherry, man. I have seen some beat down Probats. I think if I was going to start, I could probably kill 2 birds with 1 stone, if I'm being honest with you, by just getting an old Probat sample roaster, like one of those old, like 3 or 2 sample roasters. Sometimes you can find them pretty beaten down, pretty neglected. They're still expensive as shit. I've seen some pretty neglected ones, and then you could have a gas roaster while also having a small roaster, like a sample roaster. So maybe that. See, this is really the choice. Why I like to do this kind of cathartic experience is because I think that is the workaround. You get the old Probat sample roasters, and then you fix that up. So it's like you return something awesome to life, and then you got like a sample roaster. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the sample roasters in action, like the kind of how they have the stuffed thermocouples in them, and I don't know. I'm sure they have PID sensors for them and all that, but then we're really chugging down the road. I've seen a small 1 pound roaster. That was pretty sweet. Yeah. They got like little pound, like they're pretty cool. I mean, I've seen those little small Probat roasters, like that you can do like 3 different 3 different samples of the same coffee. So you could do like a dark, medium, and light sample roast on those little probats. I mean, you're looking at really needing to be able to fine tune some specific skills for it. But if you got the patience, like, definitely a possibility. But hell, man, I think if I'm being honest with you, I think I'm just gonna bite the bullet, and I'm gonna start saving up and get myself the 6 kg Mill City. I'd tell you I'd get it used, but right now used costs as much as a brand new one. So I think the goal, I think I treat it like a car. Whereas if you're not walking in a lot with the ability to buy 75% of the car, you shouldn't be at the lot. So I need to find a successful way to save 75% and then go and buy it. Just bite the bullet on the rest. San Francisco used to make a sample roaster. I looked really hard at when I bought my 6-pounder. Let's see, when I bought my 6-pounder, PID was upgrade option, and the purpose of replication at the time. Yeah. Sorry, Sorry, man. I gotta get my chat. See, we're still getting our sea legs about us over here. It's not as comfy as we are on Twitch, but you know what? I've been saying I want to try this for a while, so it's time to put the proverbial money where the mouth is. Well, that's probably as good as it gets. Sure, I'm making some real bang up content right now, but you know, like I said, we haven't done things over here on YouTube in a while, so we'll tell you this: I have made a ton of adjustments with just where I put wiring and like my TV's all wired in and stuff. I'm feeling pretty good about this space. And before I start roasting, I'm actually going to oil some of my butcher block. Oil up some of my butcher block. I'm visually impaired anyway. It's a struggle to chat. Yeah, I think you and me are very, very much kindred spirits in that fact. I do my best, though, and that's really all you can ask for. It took me a long time to realize that, but, you know, I'm getting there. It takes me long to do things, but, you know, I'm more of a process guy. I got this USB now fed, so I don't step on it anymore. It actually goes up through my ceiling. We're doing big things down here, man. We are doing some big things. I did put some cardboard down like I was housebreaking a puppy because I didn't want to get all this yucky coffee oil BS all over my pretty countertops. You know, when you roast coffee for a living, cardboard is actually pretty easy to come by. And I put an auto return on my door. So like, the door to the roasting room is now always closed. And that was a nice little touch that I had to do for the commercial kitchen. That is, I really, really like that. All right. I don't think you need to see that. I don't think you need a close-up on me oiling, putting down butcher block oil on here. You know, I'll tell you what. As dry it's been. These are still pretty good. They're in pretty good shape. Not too dry. Will about to go in the egg business here. Is that? I mean, you know, I don't think unless like, are you already set up for it? Like, I don't think eggs are going to stay super expensive forever. And I think it's more of I think the big dogs got hit the hardest with eggs. I've always bought like my eggs from farmers because, you know, the farmers market tie I have. There's like a bunch of farmers I buy my eggs from. And they're like, you know, this didn't affect us at all. They don't really get as a big of a swing when like bird flu doesn't affect them as much, simply because, you know, wild birds are more in contact with their birds, but their flock is a lot more, I guess, spread out. But yeah, I think the days of 99-cent eggs are probably gone for a little bit. So you might as well get in there. Now, if you're just interested in chickens, which, you know, knowing you, I think that might be the case, then yeah, get it yourself in that egg business. I'm going to get some birds eventually. I have the space. For being honest, like I already have like everything you need for coops and birds. I even have it all fenced out. I am afraid of snakes. Well, I'm not afraid of snakes, but I don't like them. And the idea, I feel like chickens generally seem to attract that kind of nuisance. That has been one thing that's put me on pause just a little bit. Yeah, I do think egg prices are going to go back down eventually. There's gotta be some time for there to become new hens. They're very inelastic creatures. I mean, not as inelastic as like beef. So when you see like big beef swings, like you're not gonna. But I guess what's the elasticity of an egg laying chicken? Like 3 months. So I used to raise them. I had a friend who raised, but the molt hit hard. I'm going to add 40 sapphire gems ordered, spread out over 4 months to stagger the molt. Well, there you go, man. See, it makes me wish I was still in that part of the world. I'd love to get some eggs from you. And I don't like being a guy who's always bought like, you know, pasture raised eggs. I've become pretty accustomed to spending like $4 or $5 a dozen. So this hasn't been that big of a. Has not been that big of a shock for me. So, all right. So Judy, back in action. There she is. Let's just check everything out, make sure she's running good. But told you an MQT guy that I'd clean her out, so I did. Just hiding over here. I wonder if any of our Twitchers will move over here if I start occupying a little bit more space. Who knows? I mean, I can't worry about that. Just gotta get out here and get it going. I think it's more about where you're consistent. So I like animals and caring for them. Yeah, I mean, I have always had kind of a soft spot for. I just like watching them grow and change. Kind of, kind of sappy in that way. Growing up, kind of in a farm community. I get it, man. There's a lot of appeal, and I'm not a big. I think if you're not a big vacationer, that's the one problem with animals. If you like to travel a lot, animals don't care that you need to get away. If you got good neighbors you trust, I mean, you make it work. Chickens are pretty easy. I mean, as long as you're okay with them dying, because chickens die. They are not a very hardy bird. I mean, to an extent, they are. I don't want to disparage chickens too much. No. No, that's why you making shrimp and catfish carbonara. That sounds pretty good. Is it? So shrimp. Is that something? Is that like those Gulf shrimp? Are those in season right now? I know shrimp. That's like a cold water thing, right? It's one of those things that become a little bit more prevalent. Or I guess bigger. I guess you got to talk about seafood is about size. They become bigger. I know you guys are. You are quickly moving your way towards the crawfish season down there. Crawfish season. It never was on my birthday. Like, it was always kind of a bummer, as I love like going to crawfish boils. Like, that was what I would want to do if it was closer to my birthday. But the last crawfish season, I was born about a month and a half too early for crawfish season. And I was born I was born on the wrong side of the year for oysters. I prefer shrimp. See, and I'm going to say something, and depending on who you say it to, it's gospel or blasphemy, but I don't like shrimp. I've tried. I just think they're gross for no reason. I mean, I just don't like their texture. It feels like chewing on a thumb. Like, I think crawfish. It's not even really about eating the crawfish. If I'm being honest with you, let's just get these. All right, there we go. I think I just like the culture around. I just like the crawfish boils, just hanging out. The weather has finally gotten to a very friendly spot. That's kind of my thing. Kind of my deal. All right, man. We are in business, as they say. Say Kubion. Yeah, I know. I know. Who am I? A blasphemy. So Kubion, is that the proper term? All right. Well, never was. I never could make the Cajuns proud. I grew up too much on grain. All right, let's see if we can get something cooked up. As we still got to roast some coffee tonight, so yeah, we got a lot of still got a lot of action. I'm going to just let's see. I'm going to do this. Yeah, how high? Let's try. I'm going to try a new recipe here. I'm going to try something on the fly while we're going. I don't know. We're living on the edge here, kids. You ain't from around here. I know, man. I'm not. I spent 10 years on the Gulf, but I was more of a human southerner. All right, man. Well, you enjoy your stew. Thanks for hanging out. I'm glad we got to do this on a different medium. Kind of fun. We'll see what it make of it. I'm a little too self-conscious about YouTube. I just need to chill out. Just do me. It is what it is. I don't think this is any different than Twitch. There's no difference. Just a different site. You always think like YouTube and you're like, man, I got to make this high quality video, but I don't know. We'll see. You put it out there. And if the internet hates it, who cares? It's the internet. The internet hates everything. The internet hates everything. I want to roast coffee, not become a freaking video editor. All right, well, see if we can change something up here. Try to change views a little bit. How's that look? Oh yeah, that looks pretty good. Yeah. I guess you can't see me on this camera anymore, but you think just throw it like that? That's a little screwy, huh? There you go. All right, we're going one cut, man. We're doing this one take. All right. Well, suppose while I wait, might as well make myself a little espresso. What do you guys think about that? You guys think about the Bean Man getting himself a little nightcap? Get some things set up here. Now that I know that my espresso machine doesn't blow this measly little breaker that I got set up. So if you're wondering, can you do this on a 15 amp? You can. We are living proof. You can run your decent espresso maker on a 15 amp circuit. There ain't nothing else on it, but we doing it. We doing it. All right. So I am by no means an espresso aficionado, but I like it. Probably need to get like an espresso can. I'll do that for you, internet. Even though I won't edit for you, I'll add some better look cams. I mean, this isn't a bad little shot here. Oh, Bean Man, don't forget to measure. 18.5, 18.5. We alive. $18.5, $18.5. Do a little batch of Mexican coffee tonight. Something mild, something chocolatey, something good. Something good. Is it really worth having this view? It's all dinky like that? Yes. That way I mean, if you can't see a grown man in a backwards hat, and for some reason his backside, like this is the stuff the internet was made for. All right, well, here goes nothing. All right, so we're at a pre-infusion. This is just a really light. We're not going to get above 4 bars for this, so it's a very low pressure espresso. All right, we just did what 10, 12 second pre-infusion. Now we're going. Ooh, baby, that looks good. Shooting about 32 seconds. We're gonna hit that way too early. 28. You know what? I think we got something all right here. I think we did something. Okay. I'm gonna. Ooh, that's sweet. That's rich. Ooh, that's rich. It's pretty good. A little over extracted, but nonetheless pretty good. And now I put a bunch of hot water on it. I mean, what are you gonna do? Sometimes the Bean Man just needs a little bit of Americano at nighttime. Just need something to settle my tummy tum. I'm not going to put a ton on, just about 90 milliliters. We're not going to overdo it. Ain't crazy. Ooh. Still, that's rich. I think this espresso would have done a little bit better with some milk. I think this would have been nice. been a nice milk drink espresso. It's a Sumatran, and it's a little very earthy. It's very, very earthy, but it's not a bad thing. Ooh, that is good. It's tasty. That is tasty. Very smoky. Very earthy. All right, so let's see. So today I'm going to do a Mexico. It's from the cheapest region. I'm going to tell you what. This is it's kind of unique in Mexico in that it's super one-noted, very, very dark chocolatey. But the kind of cool thing about this, and what makes it cool, that I'm going to probably do a little extra for espresso, is that it allows you to get a super rich dark chocolate flavor, but you can actually keep it pretty light and still achieve some of that bittersweet like dark chocolate flavors, which gives you a very, very smooth cup. Sometimes with bittersweet, you tend to bring a lot of roasty flavors in with it, which by no means is a bad thing. But this is so smooth that it gives you like this really rich dark chocolate, almost like a nice warm hug. There is like, if you slow down the development time just a little bit, as much as you can, there's like this syrupy molasses flavor that can kind of accentuate the flavor. But all in all, it's a very chocolatey cup of coffee. So we are going to do that today. And I'm going to do probably about 550, around about 550. Why can't I think? Why am I having such trouble coming up with the words grams? Because I just had some espresso. I'm waiting on it. I'm waiting on the bus. Come pick me up. So we're definitely going to do the Mexico, and then if there's time, I might do a little sample roast. I've got a Panamanian coffee I'm doing for my, I guess that's my monthly subscription, and I need to get a sample of that going. So I may do that. I might just wait. And do it another day. I don't know. You know, that's the nice thing about having the roaster in your house. You just, whenever you want to, you just walk on down, start roasting. You just walk on in. When I built this commercial kitchen down here, that was probably the number one incentive, was to be able to still do. Look, you can actually see the heater in that shot. See the little space heater I put in. Choo, there she is. There's old Jutesy, and we're going to preheat her up to 255. I will tell you this, when I'm doing sample roastings, I generally like to do the sample roast after I've done a roast. I don't put a ton of heat on the sample roast, and what I mean by sample roast for this is I try to do about a half a pound in there. That's about as low as I've ever really gotten any sort of feasible results out of. The temperature guides don't work great, and you are going to, like I said, like I've kind of always said about this machine, you're going to be using more conduction the less coffee you have in there. So if you load this thing anywhere past about 600 grams, you are going to have a lot more convection heat. So the hot air that you're creating from like the thermal mass of just having so much coffee in there. Like that does start with the conduction from the hot drum, but then you start getting that convection heat that starts to run through the coffee. You get less of that the more empty it is, just because you don't have that thermal mass, and then the air kind of passes over top of it. Somewhere at about a half a pound, you do start to get a little bit better results. So I have found that when I'm doing a sample roast, around about a half a pound is probably the lowest that I can go, which that's actually pretty good. That's not a bad sample for a sample roast. Clearly, it's not like those tiny little sample roasters that you'll see that more and more people are using just because they want to do samples with every single thing they do. And don't get me wrong, like I think about that kind of stuff a lot, but right now, being on the precipice, the very kind of the start of being a coffee roaster, I don't think we're quite there yet. The fact that we're even talking about getting a larger gas roaster is a monumental step. So one step at a time, but I do see the appeal. I've never had any negative results of doing sample roasting on here. I feel like I'm able to identify some flavors, but that's probably because along with getting a different roaster, I probably need to also sign up and do some sort of, even if it's I don't even need it to be SCA training. I just need to start cupping with other people, specifically people that are very assured. I don't need them to be masters or anything. I don't need like Willem Booth or someone teaching me to do it. I just need somebody who kind of speaks a very similar language. I think my tasting it definitely can always improve. It's very rudimentary right now, and where I'm at as a roaster, I don't think it's probably all I need. It does guide much of the work that I do, but if there's something, if we're being honest, if we're in the trust tree here, which we are, I mean, this is the trust tree. Yeah, I probably could use a little bit brushing up on the old tasting. But I digress. All right, so we've got our coffee. We made our espresso. Need to start making more espressos. Kind of got off this espresso wagon for a while. Best way to make espressos is to make them for other people. Because if you just make espresso for yourself, that's a lot of espresso. I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to run out and say it's too much espresso, but it's still a lot. All right, note to self, I need to get some. I'm going to have a kitchen without some kitchen towels. How are you going to have some kitchen without kitchen towels? All right, well, that's a good note. We'll just get some kitchen towels down here. We'll just have to get some kitchen towels down here. See, and I think this is really where the business dreams are made. In these moments where I'm waiting on like the roaster to heat up, I'm just having to talk to space. This is where it's born. We look back 15 years from now, whatever it is, these are the spots, these are the moments. But nevertheless, I will add chapters. So I'll just add like chapter. Bean Man just fills. I'll just put like there. Bean Man tries to vamp for 20 minutes while his roaster heats up. That's a hell of a chapter. Bean Man keeps going to other rooms because he hasn't hooked up the plumbing in this room yet. That's a chapter that hopefully will be expiring soon, but no chapter for this stream will ever top Bean Man streams for 14 minutes with no microphone on. That, I think, is really where the magic is. I think there's some magic moments there. This man. All right. Any moment now. We got her cleaned out, but now she wants to take her sweet time on the preheat. That's okay. She just got a good thorough scrub down. I mean, we can't rush her. We can't rush the old girl. We got to give her some tenderness. We got to try a little tenderness. You got to try a little tenderness. Ooh, it's comfy in here. I need to turn my heater off for a little bit because it's getting a little dry down here. For a basement, dry is not always a bad word, but we do have a storage of green beans in here, and I don't want to get it used to huge fluctuations in humidity. Try to keep it like at 50% humidity down here. I think if we're being honest, I think like 60% would be, and it's pretty cool down here. And I think with coffee beans, cool is just as important as humid because hot tends to let things kind of shake around a little bit. So as long as we keep them stored in airtight, semi-airtight containers and we don't fluctuate the humidity and the heat too much, I think they're in pretty good shape. I do try to move through my stock within like 2 months. Okay? Try to buy to move through it pretty quickly. I know that's probably not the most economic, but we're still learning. Like, kids are wasteful. When you're first learning how to do things, you're wasteful. I have to break it to my students every year that they cost the taxpayers like $6,000 a year to send them, and it blows their mind. Like, what do you? Like, that's what investments are, man. $100,000 investments before they even enter the workforce. So you better plan on giving us a little bit of ROI, a little return on our investment, which you make that back about 5 years, so it's not that big a deal. We can get that back in about 5 years. 13 years of schooling that we can have paid back to us in 5 years. No, that's not a bad deal for the American taxpayer. It's not a bad deal at all. Come on. Really wouldn't. So just kind of just keep adding little nuggets. So this is the air temperature. So it's kind of a good indicator of what the air is like inside of the roaster. This is always going to be higher than the metal temperature. So this is what the thermocouple is reading. So this is how hot it is inside of the roaster. And this is how hot that it's supposedly in the air temperature. Now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to balance out this temperature so that you don't see like major fluctuations. It does take a little. It's a little bit better indicator for preheating than just the metal temperature, simply because it's constantly having to bring in new air, and the hotter the metal gets, it will start to change that heat. So when they see less fluctuations of this, specifically when this power is down, it usually gives you a pretty good idea of a preheat. Because once we get the beans in here, the roaster is going to be bringing in air. So we want it preheated enough that the amount of beans are able to soak up the heat, but the air that's coming in isn't going to completely like flatline the roast. So the air doesn't cool it down so much that you never build up synergy. This number here should fluctuate based on how much coffee you put in, but also you can play with preheat a little bit by how much initial strength you want your roast to have. Like you could, if you want your initial roast to just be like bolting up, you can really increase this number. Now, if you don't, I mean, let's say you want to start slow and build some energy, you can lower your preheats down. Specifically, if you're doing like a darker roast and you really want to start kind of like build it like a moving train, like just you might lower this number a little bit, but increase the heat or leave higher heats on. Flip side, let's say you want to do like a light roast and you want to get it in, you want to get it like ready to go, and then you want to delay it a little bit. You can increase this, put less power on. So it comes in, soaks up a bunch of heat, and then you kind of slow it down, and then kind of finish it off. That's probably the method that this machine I have the most difficulty with. I've seen some people that are better at it than me, but what are you going to do? I'm still learning. So this is a medium roast. So what I like to do a nice solid preheat, something good. I want to get it to about 20 degrees Celsius per minute for an ROR is my goal temperature to raise it to. And then I want to back off that. I want the roast to really kind of saddle into about 12 or 13 ROR after we get to that yellowing phase. So that's kind of the overall the plan here. We'll make adjustments on the fly as need be. But here, dump our coffee in. And this is a Mexican. We're trying to keep it. There is a little bit of acidity I'd like to keep in here. So we're going to go. We got a P7. So we went about a medium preheat, and we're going to meet that with about a medium heat. I want to keep this P7 really past drying. So I want to get up to my 20 ROR, and then that's on bean temperature, not infrared. That's on infrared temperature. That's on the infrared temperature, not the bean temperature. My ROR will read over here. There's method to all that Meshuggah and I just said. JK, I have a B-more, thinking of upgrading to this. Worth it. I want to start selling it because I finally know how to roast. Well, I guess if I'm giving you my honest opinion, sounds like your track is very similar to mine there, JK. I started on a B-more, roasted about 100 roasts, got pretty confident and wanted to start going to a farmer's market, bought this, and actually started bringing this to a farmer's market. So if that is your plan, I would say that this is a really good starter while you're still learning the ins and outs of roasting coffee. This is definitely a roaster that you could, become semi-commercial, especially if you're just trying to proof the business a little bit, like find your customers, kind of understand what kind of coffees they like, find your own coffee roasting style. Like mine's a very medium buttery. That's just kind of, I always gear to that. This roaster allowed me to discover that. So really your first couple of years while you're proofing the business, this is a great roaster. I mean, the limitations are going to be on sizes. I do all of mine to order, so really that's not a huge issue for me yet. It is kind of, you don't get as much nuance as you would with a gas roaster, but I've already sold like 4 people on this roaster, so I say if you're thinking about it and you're looking for the person to push you over the edge let me be that person that gives you the nice shove. I can't speak highly of it. Learning curve might start over, but yeah, Aillio looks amazing. So for me, I got this machine in March of 2021, and I was at farmers markets by about May or June 2021. I really feel like the first year I did it compared to the second year I did it. The second year I was like head and shoulders, but I never I was able to build a pretty consistent clientele that was like, this is really good coffee, simply on this machine. So, I mean, if as a person who did exactly what you're talking about, that's kind of where we're at. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to try to start doing more of these live streams on YouTube. I've been doing them on Twitch for about 2 years. Really, my entire roasting has been on some form of streaming. I'm going to start trying to do more on YouTube. I just think there's a lot more home roasters over here. So I'm just going to start throwing up content. It might be a little rough. I'm not great at editing videos out, but if it can help somebody, and the more that I make, it's kind of like me roasting coffee. The more that I make, the more I'll kind of figure out who's watching my videos, and I can kind of cater things a little bit better to them. But for the most part, it's arguably the part of coffee I like the most. Is just talking to other roasters, and it helps me kind of figure out what I want to do for my business. I've been kind of knocking around the idea of maybe getting a larger gas roaster, but keeping this little roaster and always having it be my farmer's market roaster. I've yet to get some people to take their bullets to the farmer's market, but already subbed to the Twitch. Well, thank you. Yeah. And I don't know, I have a pretty good, I've got my group over at Twitch, but I'm always just trying to just find as many coffee nerds as I can. So 177, we're out of yellowing. We're at 13. Overall, the roast is going, I couldn't ask the roast to be going any better, so I'm not going to fiddle around with it too much. There we go. We're already at 11, so I'm not even going to cut the power. This is pretty much where I want to be. Yeah, I think Twitch, I'm a little bit more comfortable with it because I've been doing it, like I said, for 2 years, and I think the interaction is a little more natural. But if there's other coffee roasters that want to come, that are going to be more likely to find me on YouTube, or really not just find me, but just kind of have conversations with me, that's all I'm looking for. Because I'll be honest, if I never started streaming coffee, I would have never started going to farmers markets. I would have never, got a website. I would never be kind of even having the audacity to be talking, or at least thinking about getting a several $1,000 gas roaster. All of that has been kind of made possible by streaming. The more that I just have this free association where I just I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. In fact, this area here is pretty new. This is a food processing facility I built in my basement. So I went through all the state regulations, the 3-tiered sink, the mop sink, the refrigerator, really everything. I'm working with the lady from the state. We should be kind of tying up all the loose ends, and I should be able to start doing wholesale coffee, cold brew down here, and all of it from home is going to really kind of make the dream even that much closer to a reality. So, yeah, it's been slow. I'm a teacher. I'm a high school teacher by day, but kind of in my free time, once my kids are asleep, this is where I've been kind of devoting some of my time, and it's a cool hobby because you get the coffee. And, coffee is like everything. I think the more depth you find in it, you really start to draw all sorts of different parallels. And coffee is the one constant in my life. drink coffee every day, so I might as well have that be tied somewhere to my hobby with that. So. Come on. Come on, don't do that. Don't be like that. Should be hitting first crack here. Elementary STEM teacher. There you go. Yeah. High school psychology teacher. They might move me. They might start classifying me as STEM, but for now, I'm a social studies. Teachers, they just love coffee to the point where they start roasting it. Yeah, definitely. I would say definitely look at the farmer's market route because you already have summers off. That's what really sold it for me. Just knowing that I could go to farmers markets and I would always have summers off. It's just fit. I forgot to register my first crack. That's all right. Just have to go more to the old nose. And it is just insane how much better this roaster works when it's actually clean. The sensors work so much better. You just get into these patches, though, where, you're roasting every night and you're like, I just cleaned it. But it's like anything. It's better to err on the side of caution and clean it out. Damn, this is a good roast. I haven't had this good of feedback from sensors in a while, so. There you go. I mean, this will definitely get you started. Knowing how farmers markets work, it might bog you down a little bit, but you could do 200 pounds a month, maybe 4 or 5 hours, like 2 or 3 times a week, pretty easily. I know we have, and that's kind of what got me to doing like all of this is that we have this is farmers market just does dummy hours. I mean, dummy amounts of people, and it's like 3 blocks from my house. I've been going to some smaller ones that have a little bit less, like they're more built on like the cottage food laws. This one wants everything, they want everything stored in a commercial kitchen. So that's what's kind of pushed me to doing all of this extra is to just be able to go to the farmer's market close to my house. But I kind of know that once I go to that farmer's market, we're in a whole new atmosphere. Like we're in a whole new stratosphere of what we're doing. But the nice thing is I've had a lot of practice, which so I've made all the mistakes. So if you have any questions, just feel free to let me know because if there's something dumb, I've done it. I'm always happy to help. I think that's the educator in me. There you go. That's a little over a pound done in. We did that in like 11 minutes. So compared to what you can do on a B-more, like a half a pound in 25 minutes, and that's only half capacity. I'll tell you, when you get on the B-more, just the sheer amount of coffee. I mean, when you get on the bullet compared to the B-more, the sheer amount is just it's mind-boggling. And see, that's it's funny that you mentioned that because it's almost like it's Like it's 100% of what I was looking into. Um, with the Aillio, like it was the ability to create a roast profile and then be able to do that same roast profile. Because when I'm roasting at the market, a lot of what it is like I'm doing like 1,000 grams, I'm selling it, but while I'm selling it, like I'm running a mirrored profile in the background. I may be doing like an AeroPress or like a pour over, just depending on like what I'm in the mood to do at the time. Um, and I've got the roaster going. Now, it did take a little bit getting used to, having this 500-degree roaster going outside while you were doing all this other stuff. But um, that was the major selling point for me. Also, in learning, just being able to see the ROR curves. I always got another buddy who, kind of watches streams, and he just got a bullet, and like he's kind of living in like the learning curve. Sometimes too much technology can kind of pull you away from just being like, if I smell it, I know it's good, it's good. The B-more is a lot better at training you in like looking for smell or like listening for sounds or like noticing color changes, the ones that you can see. But the bullet is a whole new world. And yeah, for the price, even the bullet has gone up a little bit with inflation. The bullet, for what it does as a home roasting piece of equipment, compare it to, say, a 1 kilogram gas roaster like the Mill City 1K, which is like $7,000. It's really hard to beat. Even at like the $3,700 price point it's at, it's worth every penny. Judy too here, she paid for herself in like the first summer. Like I'm not saying like I didn't like crush or anything. Like we did really consistent sales. We made some really good contacts. We weren't really hustling or pushing too hard, but it just, the coffee started selling, and next thing you know, the roaster had paid for itself. The next roaster I'm looking at will probably won't where I'm at right now, but it's kind of one of those things. It's one of those chicken and egg things. The one thing I'm thinking, I do sell a lot of cold brew, and it would be nice to have a bigger roaster, like a 6 or 12 keg, because the amount of coffee I'm doing for cold brew these days, like it does, like I'm spending like 6 hours a week just doing like the same batch of coffee just to be able to make cold brew like 2 weeks later. So the price, I know a lot of sometimes if you're just doing it for yourself, like $3,700 can seem a little steep. But if you're, like a little micro roaster or like a custom roaster, it pays for itself. And like I said, it helps you proof your business too. It helps you kind of get to the point where you know what, who your customers are and what kind of coffee they want, because that matters. Like you do bring your own flavor. So yeah, you're ready. Like you are ready to go. Like that's the tough stuff, man. Like the bags, the logo, that's the stuff that gets you, that can get a little bit like that I didn't even have ready to go when I started. I just kind of did it on the fly. I'm still very, very much a minimalist. It's just who I am. It's like I've tried, to be a little bit more, but I just like I started with this. Like this is just a stamped bag that I have. I moved up to like gosseted bags for like when I sell it. And when I'm at the farmer's market, I don't even really sell it. Depending on like the rules the market has, I'll usually just take like mason jars, put a sticker on top of it, and I just sell it by the jar. And I'm like, if you bring the jar back, I'll fill the jar back up. It is a better deal for people who drink like my Ethiopians and my Kenyans, simply because those are smaller beans. But the people at the farmers markets that I sell to are generally drinking like Guatemalans, Honduras, El Salvador, Costa Rican, Sumatra, a lot bigger beans. So it is what it is. That's probably the biggest learning curve. And, like this being year 3 of my business, I'm working on a lot more of the nitty gritty of it. I'm dealing with a lot more like the commercial food, commercial kitchen, the state, the licensing, getting bags that are meeting state expectations. But in the end, it's still the coffee. And I probably could have grown a little bit faster than I have, but I don't know. You know, everyone's kind of got their own pace. Everyone's kind of on their own pace. And I make coffee candles too. I never did that until this year. And I'm going to tell you what, those coffee candles are at a farmer's market. I got sick of people walking up to me and saying, "Oh, I love the smell of coffee, but I don't drink it." Well, I started making coffee candles, and I'm like, "Well, I got something for you." And lo and behold, coffee candles actually do pretty damn good business. That's a great idea. People tend to like my medium roast too, most like Nicaraguans. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it's the thing. Like when I first got into it, I just wanted to do like Ethiopians, Kenyans, Burundis. And I went to the farmer's market and people didn't want those. They did. They thought they did. And I was like, me being a little, being a teacher and kind of oversharing sometimes, I'm like, well, to really get the maximum flavor here, you want to do like a light pour over. Or, ooh, this would be great like in a Chemex. Or, this would be. And then they're like, well, I just want something to put in a pot of coffee. Or this is the one you get a lot at a farmer's market. I use that little Keurig K-Cup. What can I put in the K-Cup to put in my Keurig? And then you're like, well, honestly, like a Costa Rican, a Nicaraguan, a Honduran, an El Salvadorian, or you do get some people that are into espressos. So, having something works in an espresso as a single origin, just being like, hey, here is a Guatemalan. I always bring up Guatemala. That thing's the utility coffee because it works in cold brew. It's a single origin espresso. It's a really good single origin espresso, especially like Huehue Tango. So you can be like, hey, here this is. I don't do a lot of Brazil just because Brazil's a blend. And at the farmer's market, I don't do a ton of blending because it's a pain in the ass. I do blending now on my website. I will try to keep like a seasonal blend. It's still a pain in the ass, but it's the winter. Let's see. I'd love to see that process. Sure. I mean, next time I do a set of candles, next time I throw candles, I have like a little candle making part in the other part of my basement. So I'll have no shame in streaming that. I'll make that, put it up there, and let you see it. Maybe that's another thing you can kind of adapt to your own market. If you don't mind me asking, like what part of the world are you planning on doing the farmer's market at? And if you don't want to say, that's fine too. I'm in the Kansas City area. Bag label is laid for general population. I did have a label with all these details, and my wife told me, yeah, you know what? Sometimes wives are really good at that. Like my wife is has really been the light of this business because when I first started tasting and I get into all of this this crazy nuance, like just overbearing stuff, and I finally was just like, hey, let's be frank. My wife's like, I'm going to tell you if it's good or not. So really, when it comes to like doing, like I do a monthly subscription and I'm trying to figure it all out, my wife's like, tastes it the way I did it. And she goes, it's good. She's like, sell that, it's good. And sometimes that's got to be the driving force. And with your customers, they just want to take your word for it. They're just like, is it good? And if you're like, yeah, it's good. That's all they really need. And if it is good, they'll come back and they'll tell you it's good. And if it sucks, they'll tell you it sucks. Maybe not in so many words, but you always know if one of your customers is like, I didn't like that so much. You are in good luck because Northern Michigan, you've got some really, really high-minded coffee drinkers there. You got some open-minded people. You guys really, that part of the world has been doing specialty coffee right. I mean, I've tasted some really, really good coffee. The Upper Peninsulas. I've got a buddy who lives in Detroit. He sends me some stuff from around where he's at. So Michigan, coffee town. You guys are in good spots. Kansas City's got some good coffee places. It's very Instagram. And unfortunately, our specialty coffee has been getting swallowed up by one conglomeration, which makes kind of being like, I feel like kind of a rebel roaster in that there's a major specialty coffee person around here who's been dominating the space. And ironically, I've been selling a lot of coffee in and around like Bentonville and Rogers, where the big shark Onyx is. I think that's just because people out there have a big appreciation for specialty coffee, and my brother lives there, so he's always out there pushing it pretty hard. All right, so I'm going to do a quick sample roast. This is a a Panamanian coffee. It's not a geisha, it's a Coutura, but it's coffee I'm doing for my monthly subscription that I do. About a year ago, me and, again, someone on the stream, of course, we started knocking around like, hey, we should do a monthly subscription where you just kind of do different blends or different origins or just kind of do something new every month. So this is like the 15th month we've done it. This is a Panamanian coffee. I've only done a couple of Panamas. This one, a lot of the notes that I'm getting from the distributor is to keep it light. So I'm going to do a sample roast where I roast it medium. I'm going to cup it, and then I'm going to evaluate if I think maybe I've over roasted it, under roasted it, somewhere in there. So this is a half a pound. Half a pound. It's the sensors start getting a little squirrely, but I think this is kind of a system I always use for all of my samples, and I usually can get to a medium in a realistic amount of time. So with a very stretched out development phase, we'll go. So I know Michigan has some weird laws with their commercial food. So in Kansas, you're pretty much set as a cottage food as long as you don't sell it wholesale. And it's why I'm able to sell my coffee, all around the country, because I'm actually listed more as a spice. Now, I want to go wholesale a little bit for a couple of different things. There's a couple of people that have been interested in, maybe doing a wholesale. And so I'm wanting to take advantage of that. But I know Michigan's got some different rules. I think farmers markets, though, they're straight. Can't wholesale, but you're on a cottage. Yeah. I think when it comes to farmers markets, they're pretty lenient, which is good because outside of I think we're both in farming states. But you get to the coast or other not so farmer-esque states, and you see it kind of go the other way. I've been pretty fortunate. Kansas has been very, very understanding for the most part. This is going a little fast. We need to check it. Yeah, a little too much kick. The other problem with half a pound is there's not enough mass, so you barely get any in the dryer. Yeah, for me, where I always thought I'd be on cottage forever, but the cold brew, specifically at the farmers market, cold brew it does really well. So, I was brewing it. I have a mobile food license that I got last year where I have like 3-tiered sink and I can really do all of my preparation outside, but it just gets frustrating making cold brew outside, washing all of my equipment, and then storing it in like a trailer in order to be on like the button of the law, which when you stream yourself doing everything, it's kind of a wise move if you're going to make videos of every move that you make. It's kind of not the worst idea in the world to make sure that you're above board on everything you do, but it's really the cold brew that has kind of pushed me over the edge on that. All right, so there we are. We're yellowed, and it's about the less coffee you have, the faster it's going to go. I think I might have finally broke my LED light. It might be time for a new one. It might be time for a new LED light. Oh, wait. Hold on. Oh, or it might just be time to plug it in better. Ooh, feels good. Yeah, so I bounced around with that a lot. Like I looked at the food truck. I looked at the teardrop. I was going to do like a teardrop trailer for a while. I really kind of bounced like every idea I could think of off the wall. And in the end of the day, I just set up my coffee table, bring my roaster, and hopefully I can get the kitchen down here. If I do run into a snag and there's no budging it, I may end up going to like a commissary kitchen where I'll just bring this little roaster and do like all of my cold brew roasting in a commissary kitchen. Because I really do believe in like the cold brew market, specifically like cold brew concentrate. I think that at farmers markets has got it has a lot of growth potential because a lot of people like cold brew and a lot of people like fresh cold brew and they're willing to pay for it. They do like you to teach them how to make it, but then they make it a couple of times and then they don't want to make it. Same thing with like kombucha. Like you can make the best kombucha at your house and it's not that hard for you to teach it. But about the third or fourth time you make your own kombucha, which I do, it's just a lot of extra movement that is nice that somebody is doing like big batches that is good to get in on that. But so I'm all gung ho on it, but the end of the day is I don't really want to run a food truck. Like I want to sell coffee beans. I want to talk about coffee. I really want to go into that, but I don't want to run a food truck. I don't want my business to be driven to the point where I'm like working for the truck. And anytime you start working for the truck, what you actually find yourself doing is you're slinging drinks. And I'll sell like ready-made. I'll sell like coffee, AeroPress coffee, I'll sell cold brew at the markets. But really, I want to make sure I have enough time to like talk coffee and really talk to my customers about making good cups of coffee at their house. Taking, specialty coffee, bringing it home and getting the benefits of specialty coffee at home. That's kind of more of my focus. And I just don't want to have everything I do be determined by the truck. And that's primarily like I never like when I got into coffee, like I didn't start drinking coffee until I was like 28. So I never really got into like the barista part of coffee culture or any of that. That never was like a part of who I was. I know a lot of people that get into coffee, even into roasting, they start on the barista side of things. And I mean, I'm known to dabble. Like I've got a little espresso machine down here. I just made myself some espresso a little earlier on the stream. Like I like to mess around with brewing coffee and doing a couple of different things. But when push comes to shove, like I'm more about the coffee beans. I like the culture of it. I like exploring origins, and I really just like telling people who really the biggest joy I get is when you find that person who has never drank coffee black, but they want to drink coffee black. Like they know the health benefits of it. They know that, they probably are never going to they're not going to stop drinking coffee, but they maybe can stop drinking cream and sugar. And if you can give them some sort of an alternative to drinking, heavy cream, heavy sugar, like adding whipped cream and crap on top of it, if you can give them an alternative, where they're like, I'm drinking coffee black now, or I'm just drinking coffee with a little bit of milk in it now, or, helping them find that way, it's awesome. Like, I'm not trying to say like I'm Bean Man humanitarian over here by selling someone a cup of coffee, but it's pretty cool. That's funny. I got into coffee. I learned how to taste, roast, and then how to barista. Yeah, I learned how to roast, then taste, and now I'm learning how to barista as well. But all said and done, it's easily my. I don't say it's my weakest. I got a pretty good taste. I am now. When you learn how to taste, are you self-taught or do you have like any sort of direction? Because that's funny. I'm trying to. I'm self-taught. I live very much on the acidic versus bittersweet. That's kind of how I frame all of my tasting on more of an acidity line. But I would love to just sit and do some cupping. I'll say with a master, but that's like my goal in the next year or two is to get a little bit more formal training on tasting. Not like super snooty, but something. Oh, yeah. I mean, just being able to determine the acidity of, like, people don't understand that acidity is a huge factor in coffee. That's a good sample. Still pretty punchy. Self-taught from YouTube videos. Yeah, that's kind of me too. And to be honest with you, like, I just want to kind of pick up some more like consistent verbiage where I'm having a better, it's more just like a lingo thing. I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about flavoring, at least for me, because I can get consistent results. I make decisions based on flavors that I taste. And I also can evaluate the overall, the roast. I'm really good at tasting beans, but I just want to get a little bit better in the vernacular side of things because I'm a little hung up on the acidity. I can note the amount of acidity versus the amount of like roasty flavors, specifically like sugar flavors and chocolate flavors and bitter flavors, but I'm just looking for a little bit better vernacular, maybe so I can help not put a bunch of pretentious writing on my bag, but be able to, guide people that are tasting my coffee into a more nuanced, like, hey, there's this and there's this and there's that. Because sometimes anticipation is a big part of flavor. I can't tell relative locations and get at least 2 flavor notes from a tasting. Yeah, I mean, I have gotten that good, like where I have a couple of local coffee shops. I can come in, even drink like doesn't have to be pour over. It could even be like a drip where I'm like, that's a Burundi. That's a Central American. A lot of times Central Americans, I have to just, I pull my guard. I'm like, that's a Central American. I usually am like, I can tell between a Guatemalan and a Costa Rican because of the acidity. There's some El Salvadorians that are just living like Costa Ricans lately. Obviously Costa Rica, if you get a pour over, there's that little bit of flowery notes that are they're a lot more pronounced. I'm going to guess that this Panamanian, it's a Cultura, so it's not going to have as much flowery notes, but there's going to be some fun stuff in it when I start tasting out. But yeah, 2 flavored notes. I usually can tell you about the acidity, and I can tell you if I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I can tell you it's a malic acid, a citric acid, or if it's living primarily on like acetic acid that needs to be burnt off. If there's enough of an acetic acid where you're getting like, just enough vinegar that you're getting like some of those berry notes. But I would love to be able to get like a 3rd flavor note in there, like more of the the nose. Like I like to be able to talk to someone and talk through the value of like what I'm smelling, um, what I'm getting initially, what I'm getting in the middle, and what I'm getting at the end. But yeah, through just through brunt force, I've been able to start being like, that's malic acid. Like that's a very like it's an apple flavor. And I try to go too far. I'm like, well, I'm guessing that the terroir is, but it's just it's a long game, and I'm willing to play it because this has been kind of a crazy ride, and it's just always so awesome to get to talk to other people, who are either on the ride or just kind of interested in coffee in general, because it's a culture, and it's a lot deeper, and I think home roasting, not even home roasting, but kind of like what we're talking about, this micro roaster, or really just this, I don't know if you want to call it like a rebel roaster or a micro roaster, or just someone who is just fascinated with what it is, but also, isn't ready to open a coffee shop or doesn't want to, get tied into, pouring syrups on drinks. Um, it's been awesome. And I think YouTube is probably the more efficient conduit to that. So what I'm going to start doing is here's how the stream is always driven my company. I'm going to start doing YouTube once a week. I might kick it up to 2 times a week, but I'm thinking that like Thursday nights are going to start becoming like my YouTube night. If I have stuff to do, it might be roasting a lot, but candles, that's like something I can do on a Thursday night, is like throw a couple candles. I'm going to start trying to do these Thursday night shows so that if there are people who start like wanting to come in, because really the conversation of it is what makes the streams a lot better. But we'll just see. We'll just talk roasting, and I'm not the master, but hell, I'm willing to dunk around and make mistakes, figure stuff out, and it's always great when I get to talk to people. So, JK, it was good talking to you tonight. Everybody else, that's besides the fact that the first part of this stream I didn't have volume, so I'm gonna have to probably go back and cut that out. But we'll see. We'll see how much I edit this. I'm not an editor. So if you are an editor out there and you've got tips, well, I'll do my best, but I'm also kind of ham-fisted when it comes to technology. So bear with me, and I'll try to make something cool. Would be cool to see your journey, definitely. Well, it'd be cool to see your journey, JK, when you do finally get a roaster. Like I said, if you ever want to, do like a coffee trade where I can send you some, you send me some. I've done that a couple of times. It's just kind of fun for me to just see what other people are doing, how they are kind of sorting this world out. But other than that, good talking, good hanging out, and I will see you on the flip side.